All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we've got a really cool set of stuff you sent in
Yeah.
about this new development from Google DeepMind,
Mm-hmm.
and it has to do with robotics and AI,
Yeah. Perfect.
and specifically two new models, Gemini Robotics and Gemini Robotics-ER.
Right.
And I think our goal today should be to figure out what makes these things tick
Yeah.
and what it all means,
Yeah.
for the future of robots in the physical world.
Absolutely.
So,
It's been
quite for so long.
a long time coming, right?
Yeah.
We've been waiting for AI to really come out into the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Trying to
everything.
break out of the digital space.
Yeah. And these new Gemini models are really showing us, like, this is how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and these are based on
It's built on
Gemini 2.0.
Gemini 2.0, right? Which is exciting.
Yeah, so it's all about giving robots the ability to really understand and act and react in the real world,
It's going beyond just being able to perceive things.
Yeah, and actually starting to influence things.
Exactly.
So let's just start with Gemini Robotics.
Okay.
What is this thing? What's new here?
Yeah, so think of it as like this advanced vision language action model,
Okay.
or VLA, they call it.
Okay.
And what's really cool here is that action component, right? So Gemini 2.0,
Right.
already really good at processing, text, images, audio, video.
All kinds of information, yeah.
But Gemini Robotics takes it a step further
Okay.
by actually outputting physical actions.
Oh, wow.
So it can translate its understanding of the world into like direct commands for the robot.
So it's not just seeing and understanding anymore.
Yeah,
It's able to actually make something happen.
exactly.
That's huge.
Yeah, the main goal is to allow robots to move past those very specific pre-programmed tasks and to actually be able to navigate and
Yeah.
perform in real-world situations.
Like the real deal,
Yeah.
not just a simulation or something.
And they're not just talking about this theoretically either.
Right.
Google DeepMind is actually working with a robotics company, Apptronik,
Okay.
and they're using Gemini 2.0
Wow.
to power the next generation of humanoid robots.
Okay, so now we're talking
Yeah.
humanoid robots that have this level of intelligence.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
It's going to be interesting to see where this goes.
Okay, so what are like the big things that make Gemini Robotics special?
Yeah, so they highlight three key qualities:
Okay.
generality, interactivity, and dexterity.
All right, let's break those down.
Let's start with generality.
Okay.
So Gemini Robotics really taps into that broad understanding of the world that Gemini already has.
Right.
And this is really important because it allows the robot to adapt to situations it's never seen before
Okay.
and solve tasks that it hasn't been specifically trained on.
So it's applying its knowledge in new ways.
Exactly. It's not just recognizing familiar objects, it's understanding those underlying principles so it can handle something new. It can handle new objects, it can interpret different instructions, it can function in environments it's never been in before, and get stuff done.
Yeah, so it's not just like looking at a wrench and being like, I know what a wrench is.
Yeah,
It can actually figure out how to use the wrench.
exactly. And the data shows that Gemini Robotics is doing way better than other models in these tests.
Really?
Like more than double the performance of other vision language action models.
Wow. More than double. That's a lot.
That's a big jump. It's
Right.
not just like a small improvement.
Yeah, that's a whole other level.
It's a whole different level of capability. So you can imagine a robot not just seeing a tool it's never seen before, but actually figuring out how to use it
Yeah,
based on what it looks like and what it needs to do.
that's amazing.
That's the kind of adaptability we're talking about here.
And double the performance.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's incredible.
It can handle all those unexpected things that come up.
Yeah. Okay, so that's generality.
Right.
What about interactivity?
So interactivity is super important
Yeah,
for robots that need to operate in our world.
especially in a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah, and because it's built on Gemini 2.0, Gemini Robotics has that same sophisticated language understanding.
Right.
So it can understand instructions that are given in just regular everyday language, and it can even understand different languages.
Oh, that's amazing.
So you can imagine just talking to a robot the
Yeah.
same way you would talk to a person,
Yeah,
and it would understand what you're asking it to do.
that's the dream.
Yeah, and it can respond really quickly, too.
Okay, so a very natural way of interacting
Exactly.
and giving instructions.
And it's not just about understanding what you're saying, it's also about being aware of what's happening around it. So it can see if something changes in the environment, like maybe someone moves an object or something.
Yeah.
And then it adjusts what it's doing in real time.
Oh, that's cool.
That's what they call steerability. And it's really important if you want humans and robots to be able to work together effectively.
Yeah, so it can adapt on the fly
Yeah,
based on what's happening.
exactly.
So it's not just going to keep trying to do the same thing over and over
Right.
if something's changed.
Yeah, like they give the example, if a robot is trying to pick something up and it slips out of its grasp,
Oh, yeah.
it can quickly replan and try
Yeah.
again.
Instead of just like
Right, it doesn't just give up.
spazzing out or something.
It figures out a new way to do it.
Yeah.
Which is really important in the real world where things don't always go perfectly.
Okay, cool. So we got generality, we got interactivity.
Yeah.
Last one, dexterity. What is that about?
So dexterity is all about the ability to do those really complex tasks.
Okay.
The multi-step things that require like really precise movements.
So fine motor control.
Exactly. Think about all the things we do with our hands every day.
Right.
Like folding a piece of paper or picking up a small object. Those are things that robots have traditionally had a really hard time with.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But Gemini Robotics is actually pretty good at this stuff.
Okay, so it's not...
They're showing that it can do things like fold origami.
What, origami?
Yeah, origami.
That's hard.
It's super delicate and it requires a lot of precision.
Yeah, so this is beyond just picking something up.
Yeah, it's about making those really nuanced and controlled movements.
Yeah, and so is this tied to a specific type of robot?
That's what's cool. Gemini Robotics isn't designed for just one type of robot. They built it to be adaptable.
Okay.
So it can work with different robot bodies.
Gotcha.
They trained it using data from this bi-arm robotic platform called Aloha 2.
Okay.
But they've also shown that it can control other bi-arm systems.
Interesting.
And they think they can even adapt it for more complex robots like the Apptronik Apollo humanoid robot.
So the same brain
Oh, yeah.
can control a bunch of different bodies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really versatile approach.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Gemini Robotics.
Right.
And then we also have Gemini Robotics-ER.
Yeah, this one's a little different.
Okay, so if Gemini Robotics is all about vision, language, and action,
Yeah.
what is Gemini Robotics-ER focused on?
So the ER stands for embodied reasoning.
Okay.
And the main idea here is to take Gemini's understanding of the world and make it even better specifically for robotics.
Right.
And they're really focusing on spatial reasoning.
Okay.
So this is all about understanding where things are in space
Right.
and how they relate to each other.
Gotcha.
And the goal is to give roboticists a way to use this understanding
Okay.
with their existing robots.
Yeah.
So it's like adding a higher level of intelligence
Okay.
on top of the existing control systems.
So maybe it's less about directly telling the robot what to do
Yeah.
and more about giving it a really deep understanding of what's around it so it can make its own decisions.
Yeah. Right. So they're saying that Gemini Robotics-ER is much better than the original Gemini 2.0
Cool.
when it comes to things like pointing at objects and
Okay.
understanding 3D space.
Yeah.
And when you combine that spatial reasoning with Gemini's ability to code,
Right.
you get something really interesting because now the robot can basically come up with new capabilities on the fly.
What, it can just invent new things?
Well, not invent exactly,
Yeah.
but it can figure out how to do things it's never done before.
Okay.
Like they give this example of a coffee mug.
Okay.
So the robot sees a coffee mug
Yeah.
and it can figure out how to grasp it by the handle
Right.
using 2 fingers.
Yeah.
And it can also figure out how to move its arm
Yeah.
so it doesn't bump into anything.
So it can plan the whole movement.
Yeah, and it does all this without ever being explicitly programmed to grasp a coffee mug.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's basically using its knowledge of the world
Yeah.
to reason about how to interact with this object.
So it's not just following a set of instructions.
Right, it's thinking for itself.
Yeah.
And when they tested this in a more complete setup,
Okay.
where Gemini Robotics-ER is doing everything,
Yeah.
from perceiving the world to planning the actions to actually generating the code,
Right.
it was way more successful than just using Gemini 2.0 by itself.
Oh, wow.
Like it had a much higher success rate.
Yeah.
And in cases where just generating code wasn't enough,
Okay.
it could actually learn from watching humans do the task a few times.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so it can kind of pick up new skills just by observing.
So it's learning by example.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So the big strengths of Gemini Robotics-ER are in things like being able to identify objects and their parts
Right.
and finding the same points on an object from different angles
Okay.
and doing 3D object detection.
Right.
These are all really important capabilities.
Yeah, those are fundamental for
Yeah.
a robot if it wants to be able to move around and interact with the world.
Yeah.
Okay. So these are both super sophisticated models,
Yeah.
but we're talking about robots doing all this stuff out in the real world.
Right.
So we have to talk about safety.
of course.
What are they doing to make sure these robots are going to be safe?
Yeah, that's a really important question, and the developers are taking it very seriously.
Okay.
They're using like a layered approach to safety.
Okay.
So it starts with the basic safety features that are already built into the robot itself.
Okay.
Things like collision avoidance and
Mhm.
stability control.
Yeah.
So if the robot is about to bump into something or tip over,
Yeah.
those systems will kick in and
Right.
try to prevent that from happening.
Okay. So it's not just relying on the AI to keep it safe. There are other backups.
Yeah. And then on top of that,
Right.
they're also using the AI to help assess the safety of actions.
Okay.
So Gemini Robotics-ER can look at a situation
Yeah.
and figure out if a particular action is likely to be safe or not.
Gotcha.
And it can use that information
Yeah.
to help guide the robot's behavior.
So it's like a multi-layered safety net.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and they're also doing a lot of research to
Okay.
try to make these models even safer. So
Uh-huh.
they've created this new data set called Asimov.
Asimov,
Yeah.
like the author.
Yeah, exactly. And they're using this data set to help them evaluate and improve the model's understanding of safety.
Yeah. So it's constantly trying to refine it.
Yeah, they're always looking for ways to make it better.
Yeah.
And they're also working on this really interesting idea called robot constitutions.
Robot constitutions. What is that?
So basically, it's like a set of rules
Okay.
written in plain language
Yeah.
that the robot has to follow.
Okay. So like guidelines.
Yeah, and these rules are designed to make sure that the robot's behavior aligns with human values.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's kind of like a way to make sure that the robot is acting ethically.
Yeah. So it's not just doing whatever it thinks is best.
Right.
It has to consider the human perspective.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that these robot constitutions can be changed and updated
Right.
as our understanding of AI safety evolves.
So it's not just a fixed set of rules.
Right.
It can adapt as we learn more.
Exactly. So the developers are working with their own internal safety teams,
Yeah.
and they're also talking to experts from outside the company
Okay, that's good.
to get as much input as possible on how to make these robots safe.
So it's a really collaborative process.
Yeah.
And it's not just happening in a vacuum.
Right.
They're getting feedback from all different sources.
Yeah.
So who are some of the people who are actually testing this stuff out?
So they have a group of trusted testers.
Okay.
And these are some of the biggest names in robotics.
Okay. Who are we talking about?
We're talking about Agile Robots, Agility Robotics, Boston Dynamics.
Oh, wow. Boston Dynamics.
Yeah.
Those are some of the best.
Yeah, they're the leaders in the field.
Yeah. And Enchanted Tools.
Right.
So these are all companies that are working on really cutting edge robotics.
Yeah, so they're getting feedback from the people who are actually going to be using this technology in their real world.
Okay, cool. So just to recap,
Yeah.
we've got Gemini Robotics,
Yeah.
which is all about giving robots that ability to understand what they see,
Yeah.
to understand language,
Right.
and then to actually take actions based on all that.
And do it in a way that can work with a lot of different robot designs.
Yeah, it's super versatile.
Yeah.
And then we have Gemini Robotics-ER,
Right.
which is more focused on the thinking side of things.
Yeah, the spatial reasoning.
Yeah, giving the robot a really deep understanding of the world around it
Exactly.
so it can figure out how to do new things.
And integrate with those systems that already exist.
Yeah, and both of these models seem like they're really pushing the boundaries
Yeah,
of what robots are capable of.
Yeah.
It feels like we're getting closer to that point
Yeah.
where robots can actually be truly helpful in the real world. You know, not just doing these pre-programmed tasks, but actually being able to adapt to different situations and learn new things.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Yeah, this is super cool stuff.
It's a big step forward
Yeah,
in realizing the potential of robotics.
absolutely.
Yeah, robots are going to be able to understand the world and
Yeah.
react to it in a way that we've never seen before.
So it's not just about them being able to do things for us. It's about them being able to understand what we need
Right.
and respond accordingly.
Exactly.
All right, so as we wrap up today,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
These models, Gemini Robotics and Gemini Robotics-ER,
Yeah.
they're clearly very sophisticated.
Yeah.
They're pushing the boundaries of what
Yeah.
we thought was possible.
Right.
So think about this.
Okay.
As these models continue to develop,
Yeah.
as embodied AI gets even more sophisticated,
Uh-huh.
how is that going to change the way we interact with technology? How is that going to change the physical spaces we live in?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It is. It's a huge question.
Yeah.
What are the most exciting possibilities?
Yeah.
What are the things that we should be paying attention to
Right.
as this technology continues to develop?
The ethical implications.
Yeah,
of
this is a conversation that's just beginning.
Yeah.
We've only scratched the surface here today,
Yeah.
but it's something that we're going to be talking about for a long
Yeah.
time to come.
Definitely.
All right, thanks for diving deep with us.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.